Hey everyone, and welcome to the Selling Smarter Show, where we help business owners and sales professionals sell smarter by using LinkedIn. My name is Nicole Hoagland, and I am your host. In today's episode, though, we have a very special guest. We have Mike Saunders, and he is going to be going over a webinar with us all about authority positioning in this whole social distancing era that we're going through that was sprung onto us due to the COVID crisis. For those of you who don't know Mark, he is the authority positioning coach and expert. And with an Amazon best-selling book, The Authority Selling, he also has an MBA in marketing, and he's a member of the Forbes Council. It's no wonder that he's a business coach that you can turn to time and time again when you need help with your authority positioning. So welcome to the show, Mike. We're really excited to kind of see what you've been able to put together for us.
Cool. Yeah. So first of all, this is not a sales pitch, call, webinar, sales funnel. There is nothing to buy, nothing to sell. This is pure, just helpful tips. So I want to set the record straight and the tone here, because I think that's really important today. But here's something interesting that when you mentioned about selling and prospecting through LinkedIn, I literally at the time of this recording got off of another webinar where I was, or as a podcast interview, I was interviewed on, and this guy runs massive summits, right, in this specific industry. And he said, let me tell you guys how Mike and I connected. He connected with me on LinkedIn, but he did something really unique. He sent me a video through LinkedIn. And then that caught my attention. And then I looked and I saw, all right, he's pretty legit looking at, the profile. So there is something to be said for reaching out to people on LinkedIn and not just doing the normal, all the things you would teach your clients. There are some things when you have authority positioning in your branding and in your brand, it's going to make your LinkedIn marketing work that much better. So everything you're teaching your clients is going to work that much better when you learn some of these authority positioning things.
Exactly. It's just leveraging what you already know we do as a company and utilizing what Mike is about to show us to make sure that in any way, shape, or form, no matter what season the economy is going through, people look at you as the expert and they don't necessarily have to question what you do.
Yep, exactly. So and one of the things that I always say is this. It's a phrase I've heard, but I don't hear it often. Real is rare. So when you can be real and helpful and transparent and authentic, all those buzzwords, people sense that. They can tell if you're a fast-talking salesperson and trying to get them to do something. But when you're helpful and educating them and being really an advocate for helping them understand whatever it is that you're doing, that is really rare. So I think that's a big, when we're talking about selling and anything these days is sales and marketing. But when they see you as credible, they're going to give you the time of day. But then when they can tell that you're authentic and transparent, they're going to at least listen a little bit more intently. It still doesn't guarantee the sale, because you still have to have a good product, a good service, a good brand, but all those things have to work together.
Exactly. And it takes time and it takes effort. I think that's the one thing that sometimes people shy away from is the authenticity and the realness about people. It's not just showing up and being who you are. You have to work at it, and you have to get people to start trusting that. And it does take work, and you do have to put the effort in to make it worthwhile. But if you do that, most of the time you come out on the other side and you say, actually, that was fun. Even though it was work, I enjoyed doing it because you didn't have to do anything that you weren't willing to do yourself.
100%. Okay, this is me, but literally when this came up, I had a client that's a business coach in Texas, and they were like, help me bring a message of good news to my market. So I came up with the social distancing authority marketing amplification, right? How to create the 2.0 version of your brand. So we're not playing the same game anymore, right? Because there's still schools closed. And at the time of this recording, we're in the middle of this quarantine thing. What's it going to look like when it comes out? But right this minute, we know that things are changing, and we might not get back to the normal we knew before. It might be half and half. We might get back to somewhat of a normal, but now we've got a lot more virtual going on, and maybe the levels of trust need to be increased. So to me, this is so relevant here. And just a couple points here. There's always two sides to every coin, right? We've probably seen the quotes out there like, oh, well, I forget what it was, but some big thing was created during this depression and polio. We can do big things during this time. Secondly, focus 100% of our attention on finding the opportunity because it's there. So what we're going to talk about here today is just some good things. I'm going to give some free advice, free resources, free tips, free, things, products and services.
Free everything.
100%. And guess what? To get them, you don't need to go to a funnel and put in your dumb email address. I'm just going to go shoot me an email and I'll send it back to you. So it's not even a veiled, let me build my sales funnel. So right now there's two choices that separate those that are successful versus struggle. And we've heard this before, but we can react and go, what's going to happen? Everything's going bad, but you know what? There's things that are going good too. So the other choice is we need to be proactive and lean into this time with a hopeful attitude. And let me give you just tip number one, write her down on number one. I use Evernote for a lot of things. I have folders and I use it for planning and things. I have a file that I call Corona Blessings, kind of like count your blessings.
Mm-hmm.
And I have tracked since the first day that we've gone into this craziness, here's the date and what happened good. Date, what happened good. Date, what happened good. And I've got like 21 things.
I mean, honestly, it doesn't take much to show you that even in times of struggle and times where like just things are going wrong, that there's still things that you can see that have a light in them. Like I have a daughter who's a toddler, and every day I write down what she did that was funny, because even though it may be a struggle and there may be difficulties in that, every single day there's something that you can be grateful for.
Yep. And you're going to forget.
Oh, yes.
like with your toddler and with business, and you're going to get 6 months from now and be like back into the fray of craziness in a good way. And you're not going to remember some of these. So maybe to be able to come back up and go, hey, you know what? And aside from this time, I keep what I call a gratitude journal, and I will write down, hey, this happened really good. So we have to have those things, because if we let ourselves think about, oh, today's going to be a bad day because look, it's cloudy out and I stubbed my toe on the couch walking down the hall. So not that I have a couch in the hall, but you get my point.
Yeah.
We can find negative. So we have to be proactive. And I thought this was I heard this once a few weeks ago, and I thought this was so cool. We have been given a gift. And if we frame it this way, I want to have this whole presentation about giving and giving gifts. So number one is free gift number one. At the end, I'm going to give you my email, and I'm going to give you a copy of my book, an electronic version, PDF, so you can get it right away, of Authority Selling. And it really is a lot of do-it-yourself DIY tips and strategies on positioning yourself as a authority and expert in your field. So I'm going to give that to you. There you go. At the very end, you can email me. But here's the other gift. Back up every Christmas time. Wouldn't it be cool if we were, as a business owner, entrepreneur, salesperson, given like 3 weeks of time where you're getting fully paid, no expectations, no deadlines, no anything in that respect, and your competition isn't creeping up on you?
Mm-hmm.
Because that doesn't exist, right?
It doesn't.
Because if we take 2 weeks off and disconnect from everything, your competitors are out there grinding away, and maybe they're going to creep up on you, or maybe your client projects are falling behind. During this time we're in right now, we have been given a gift. Everyone is in the same boat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're trying to go virtual and stay and all of that, but there's time that we must take right now, because, and I know you know this, Nicole, but Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth,
mm-hmm.
Take time to work on our business, not in our business. We might now have, you might be 80-20, the other way. We might be spending 80% of our time now working on our business, not in our business. But do it, because if we can, like I said at the very beginning, 2.0 our brand during this time, when we come out of it and we're in sprint mode, we better be sprinting in the right direction with everything just polished up really nice. So that's the gift. Here's another thing. Years ago, my wife and I stopped watching the nightly news. Why do I want to be watching the news? We're in Denver, so it comes on at 10 p.m. And I remember back in the East Coast, I think it's like 11 o'clock. Anyway, 10 o'clock. Why do I want to be laying in bed watching the news and click the power button and go, wow, how many deaths and negative. And so we don't watch the news, and we keep attention on the COVID highlights just a little bit, mm-hmm. but we don't overwhelm ourselves on, oh my, the numbers went up today. But there are, in the midst of all this mess, there are good news stories. And I've got this screenshot here with just some examples. There is good things happening. And it started with a couple weeks ago where this whole thing started in China. Well, now China's reopening theme parks and Apple stores, and their hospitals are, their extra, whatever triage, units are now being closed down. And so what I've got at the end of this presentation, one of the other giveaways, just so you know, is I've got a embed code that I'm happy to give to anybody that wants this. to present good news to their audience. So for instance, let's say that you're a whatever business coach and you want to keep your clients, positive attitude about this whole situation. You can put this embed code and have this view right here, all these news stories coming into your feed so that people can just read right on your website. Hey, there's a news story that came out yesterday. Hey, this is going on good. So we need to be watching for good and talking about the good. And you can take, and I'll at the end, I'll show you the live link because there's, like 30 stories right now. And you could take, story number 1 and paste that in your social media and go, hey guys, kind of crazy out there, but here's a little glimmer of hope. And so it gives you something to talk about. That's a good thing. So the opportunity is to 2.0 our brand, because you then will have a powerful leap ahead of your competition. Your competition probably is not a reader of books. You've heard the saying, leaders are readers. Well, percentage wise, probably only 5% of the leaders in your competition are out there actively doing the things they should be doing anyway in the organization, personal development. So they certainly aren't going to be doing these kinds of things. They're not going to be improving their brand, their authority position, talking about the good things. So if you can be doing this now in whatever time frame until we start getting back to normal, you're going to have a powerful leap ahead of your competition. Because think about this. Your prospects have a choice to choose you or your competition. I was doing a podcast interview for attorneys, and I was like, hey, yay, you've got a JD after your name. Guess what? You've got competition, because there's all these other attorneys vying for that case. So yeah, you compared to their friends at church, they don't have a law degree, so you're well above them. But that's not the point. Your prospects see you in the sea of all of your competition, and wherever they find you, they find your competition. How do you stand out? That's what it's all about. Getting prospects to choose you. And it's not being the loudest. It's not having a deadline and a countdown timer and a limited scarcity. It's just going, here's the deal. In whatever industry you're in, you got to understand this. And here's something that I put together. This will be a helpful piece for you. Learn from it. And if there's something I can do to help, I'm happy to. So that's what we're talking about, is getting prospects to choose you by what? Talking about the solution, not the problem. We have to allude to the problem, because in sales, like how many times have we seen Shark Tank where it's like, what's the problem you're solving? I don't even know the problem. There's not a market for this. There's not a problem with whatever that the product is. We have to know there's a problem so that we can solve it, but we allude to it and we touch on it just enough to recognize that, yeah, it's a problem, but let's talk about the solution. Here's what you have to keep in mind.
Well, and I think too, with that, leading with the solution and to the solution by kind of talking about the problem, but really getting into the meat and potatoes of what you can actually offer them, also turns it from a negative to a positive, which is what you were just talking about with the good news. You're kind of disrupting what they normally see with, do you have this type of problem, and what's going on with this, and blah, 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 blah. So you're really kind of breaking it down to what your audience really wants to see, as opposed to what people are, what they're used to.
Because if you keep talking about all the doom and gloom, it just kind of brings you down, but you need to be that voice of reason now, of course. But even when you're talking about the solution you provide to your target audience in whatever industry you're in, talk about what's going on good, and you become that voice of optimistic reason. So here's just a thought. Think of a topic that will ease the mind of your target audience as it relates to your product or service. So whatever that problem is, what is it that you can teach them, do for them, solve for them, and then start building what I call an authority positioning portfolio. And this is kind of like, I've got an image on my website where I've got like a federal trademark on that term, because it hit me one day a few years ago. Like if you're a fashion designer or a website designer and you're like, hey, look at my whatever, you're flipping through this portfolio live or online. So you need for yourself and your brand personally, personal brand, business brand, you need to have this authority positioning portfolio that transcends, it goes way above just here's our happy customers, here's our work, but it's why you should trust me in reality. You don't even say that. You don't go, here's why you should trust me. Look at this. But if you can build these assets within this portfolio, talking about what you do to solve the problems for your target audience, and they're on platforms of trust, you win. So think of it like this. I heard this really recently, and I researched this old book from like the 60s, and it really resonated with me, the title. It's called The Medium is the Message. So think of like whatever industry you're in and whatever problem you solve. If you wrote this 3-page blog post, or a 3-page article that really gave good detail, no selling, just really, really helpful stuff. Which would you, if you were viewing this and you had that problem and you were viewing these two choices, which would you find more authoritative? That article on a blog post or that article featured in a book? Like the top 10 minds in whatever industry, chapter 1 is your chapter on this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, anyone these days can get free WordPress and post up a blog, whoop-de-doo. But to be in a book? Or what about this? What would happen if you then, and this is not demeaning YouTube because I'm on YouTube, you got to have YouTube, but the barrier to entry to posting a blog post or posting a YouTube video, it's simple. Anyone could do that. But which would be easier, you teaching about that same topic on a YouTube video, which you have to do, or having your own TV show syndicated to Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Prime? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute. You mean your show? That's pretty cool. So that's what we need to talk about, is having these educational pieces of content, being able to be seen by your target audience, all teaching them. And the kind of the backhanded way is like, oh yeah, but look at where I'm appearing. You know, I wrote an article for Forbes recently, and they're like, oh, cool. Or, hey, I was recently featured on this podcast interview where I talked about that very question you had. Hey, take a listen and then let's chat.
Mm-hmm.
If they listen to half of the podcast, that's great. They don't even need to listen to every syllable, but the fact that you were featured on being asked the questions as the expert, boy, that elevates them in your mind. So that's what we're talking about here. So here is just an example. So, just a brief piece of an authority positioning portfolio. So let's say that you, and Nicole, give me an example. Don't give me names or companies, but give me an example of a client you work with. What industry are they in, and what are they trying to achieve and sell?
So I'll kind of give you a generic. We work a lot in the accounting, financing, CPA world. And a lot of the times they're trying to sell their accounting services to businesses because corporate accounting it has a lot larger profit margin than regular accounting.
Yes. Okay. So good. So let's say that you are a CPA looking to get larger corporate accounts, not the Statue of Liberty by the side of the road spinning a sign
Mm-hmm.
at tax time, right? So a good sized corporate account. You could, and this is a resource that I talk about in my book that I'm going to give for free, but I tell you exactly where to go to find people that already have podcasts, see if you can become a guest on their podcast. Now, are you going to go to a podcast that is all about knitting or crochet? No, but you could go find someone that does a podcast on, money tips, for, whatever it is, top money tips. Well, now you could get featured on that podcast as an interview guest and talk specifically about what you do. And as long as it has relevance, again, you don't want to go to underwater basket weaving and talk about corporate finance, but you can, or accounting, but you could be on a finance or even accounting. I guarantee you there are accounting podcasts. And if you run your own podcast, you need guests.
Mm-hmm.
So if you reached out to that person and said, hey, I run an accounting firm and we have a really unique way of approaching corporate accounting, would love to come on your show and talk about our new book this or talk about our process that. Well, now you get featured on a podcast. You talk on the phone. It doesn't even need to be Zoom video, just a phone interview. And guess what you talk about? You teach and you educate, talk about the solution to the problem, and you're being interviewed. This podcast host is like, oh, Nicole, that's really awesome that you guys do that. Now, how are you different than other forums? Oh, well, normally they do it this way, but what we do is, so now you do a 20, 30-minute interview, really easy and fun, is talking about what you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're done, you've got this link like on the screen here. This is an attorney that I interviewed on my podcast, and I sent her. Now this is a blown up version, but this was a really nice high resolution image of, hey, I was just interviewed on influential entrepreneurs, and she can send that out to her client base, her social media, her email list, her website, and go, hey, I was just interviewed on. Take a listen. Let me know what you think. And
Mm-hmm.
this was more of a 30,000 foot view, but let's say we did a follow up interview talking all about her brand new book that she's coming out with, focused on athletes and how they should handle their legal matters. which she is, and I'm working on with her on doing other projects. But this right here is a very simple way that if you as that CPA could get on a interview podcast, that's free, and you talk about what you know, that's easy. And now you've got that link that's starting to build your authority positioning portfolio. And now that is asset number one. And what do you do with that? Sit back and hope that people listen to that and now your phone's going to ring off the hook? No way. I don't care if there's 2 listens to that interview. The fact that you were interviewed on someone else's show and they're giving your bio and they're asking you questions and you're being helpful and authoritative, that is gold. So now there's some really easy things you can do. I'll just give you one, but let's say that now there's this, CEO that you've been talking back and forth with, and you love to, land them as a client. You just maybe LinkedIn message them and go, oh, hey, I hope you're doing well. Just wanted to touch base with you real quick. I was just interviewed on this podcast about some of the things we've been talking about. Take a listen. Let me know what you think. Talk soon. Well, now it's not one more message or LinkedIn contact where it's like, call me, let's do business. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And it elevates your position in their mind, your brand. And what if that becomes the tipping point? That's so easy. The other thing on the right-hand side here is, press release. So you could go and get a press release written and syndicated and distributed online that you were featured on this podcast talking about whatever, have a quote from you, have a call to action, have a link to your website, and that gets syndicated out there online. You have to pay money for that because, no one's going to write a press release for you for free. No one's going to syndicate it for free. But when that happens, here's 2 things that, let me just see something here. Okay. I don't get into this presentation, but I'll tell you like a super ninja trick here. When you get referred to someone like this CPA that we're using as an example, they don't go, oh, Nicole told me to call you. So, whatever your invoice is, just send it to me and I'm going to hire you. No. In fact, they don't even contact you. Guess what they do? They Google your name and your firm. What are they going to see? Now, yes, we can talk about reviews and testimonials. That's important, super important. But they're going to see your website and your LinkedIn because it's indexed to you, but they don't really start there. And here's why. They know your website's the sales thing. They know that's what that is. So yeah, I'll look at it later. And they know LinkedIn. Okay, I'm going to look through that. But they also might know that when you visit a LinkedIn profile that you can tell who's visited. And that might even attract people to, hey, I saw it. They want to be invisible for a while. So what would happen if they Googled your name and your brand and they saw, oh, like in this case, Savannah DeBarros, she was interviewed on, I'm going to listen to that because I was referred to her and I don't know that I want to call her just yet, but I'm going to listen to that podcast interview. And it's vibrant and energetic, and they learn a little bit about her approach. And then they go, doggone if she wasn't also featured in the media. Huh. Well, if my girlfriend so-and-so, my coworker so-and-so referred her, I'm going to give her a call now. See how powerful that is. And let's pause right here. This is just a huge strategy. It can be DIY because you can go get on some you don't need to pay people for that. Now, there's obviously, when you get back in the fray of things, if there's some done for you, some services where you could be just handed to you, obviously that makes it simpler. But for right now, you can go research these podcasts you would like to get on, reach out to these people, and you can get on 1 or 2 podcasts. And don't just do the same old interview every single time like my background is, our company does. After you do the first one, that's like a 30,000 foot view of your firm, do 1 or 2 more that are solely on one specific thing. Like, hey, when our clients understand this, lights out, it's all over, they hire us. Do an episode on just that so that you can, again, use that in your business development. So again, being interviewed, getting some press coverage, and it doesn't matter if you're in California and you get some online Florida media to post that up online. It doesn't matter where the location is. The fact is, you're doing it for Google. You want Google to see that you were indexed so that when people Google your name, they see like, oh, that's, and I have over and over again, like, oh, look at Savannah DeBarros. Here's the interview that we did. Here's the press release. And now all of a sudden it's like, you're really doing this for Google. So huge piece there. Do you have any points or thoughts on getting interviewed on podcasts?
I have 2 thoughts. So one, actually 3 thoughts. So one, I encourage everyone right now to actually go Google them, like Google your name, Google the company, and see what comes up, because you will be surprised at maybe what is lacking and what you need to do in order to get and accomplish the things that you just talked about. Two, when it comes to podcasts and kind of this overarching strategy on building your authority, start small. Just create a list of a couple podcasts that are in your industry that would be great to get on with contact information, a couple of episodes that maybe you want to listen to beforehand, and just create a simple spreadsheet to see who you reached out to, who got back to you, when you're going to be on it, and go from there and add to it, because as you add to it, it just becomes a rhythm and a routine, and it kind of becomes second nature. But make sure you listen to the podcast and you know exactly who you're emailing to ask for it, because if you kind of send out a blank generic, hi, this is me and I want to be interviewed on your podcast and here's my topic, 9 times out of 10 people are not going to be interested in having you on, especially if they have a robust guest list. They want to know that you've taken the time to invest in their podcast first before you make that pitch. And it goes a long way, even if you only have time for 2 or 3 episodes, to kind of say and quote in your pitch, like, oh, I listened to this episode, because most of the time you will rise above the noise and they'll say, oh, this person took the time to actually see me as an authority and see what I'm doing. Yes, let's see if this is a fit.
And you don't need 4,312 interviews. You need like whatever. And here's something else. I get pitched daily, literally daily, from PR agencies going, hey, my client wrote a book would love to come on your show. And so I'm like, okay. And so I have to look through these one sheets and I say, yes, no, yes, no. But let me tell you what captures my attention is I have gotten just about 3 of these where these PR agencies will send me a screenshot and say, hey, I found your show Influential Entrepreneurs. I just did a review. Here's the screenshot. I just did an iTunes review for you. By the way, would love for you to interview so-and-so. And I'm like, that's pretty cool because I want reviews for my podcast. And they took the time to do that ahead of time. Now, if it's like for instance, I don't interview people that are so totally off my target audience. So I do say no many times, but as long as it's, if it was something where I'd be like, I don't know, if they've done that, I'm like, yeah, let's interview them. So that's a great point you bring up, Nicole, is takes a little bit of time to do a little bit of research because we have some time now. You don't need to do a blast, mass market, but just do some target, do like 3 a week and make 3 outreaches. And maybe you get on 1 show a week for a while and you just use that. So start small and keep it simple.
Exactly. And the third thing is always thank, like, I just know this because I've been in podcasting for like 3 or 4 years now, but it doesn't hurt to thank them and show them that you actually have appreciated being on them by actually sharing on your social media. Just because they're the person that's interviewing you and they're the ones that are promoting it for you does not give you the okay to just sit back and not do it. If they're sending you the photo and they're sending you these things, it's not because they just want to show you. Take the next step and share it on your social media, tag them, because then your audience is now open up to this person and all of that goodwill is going to filter back to you.
Yeah. And I've on my podcast done 430 or 40 episodes, and I've been on I've lost count, but it's pretty rare that you get back from a podcast host like, hey, thanks for being on. Here's the link. And here, I made this little graphic for you. But when I do, I then use that, promote that to my social media and tag them. So now all of a sudden they can come back and go, oh yeah, that was such a great talk where we talked about this. And it helps, expose them to my audience, them and mine to theirs. And so that's a really good point too, is show that gratitude and appreciation. So it's really simple. And that's a wonderful, easy place to start. So let me tell you then free gift number 2. So I have this home study course called How to Attract Free Publicity, 6 modules, and I'll just give it to you. So as you can see here, module 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and how to position your business and how to get a press release and how to distribute it and, how to approach people. So it's just helpful stuff. And it's nothing fancy, and there's no download, funnel. It's like, I'll send you a link to the PDFs or the folder or whatever. It's just very simple, but it's good knowledge. So if that is helpful to you, like this could get you started with, hey, how do I reach out and position myself to these podcasters? This would be a helpful thing for you there. So that's free gift number 2. Free gift number 3 is I did this summit called the Authority and Influence Virtual Summit. And I'm going to, again, just give you this entire summit. And there's no funnel and download. If you notice here on the screen, there's no www because I provide this online, and you can go to the URL and get on my email list, and I'm going to, follow up with you. But on this call here, I'm going to I'm going to add you into the list without going through any funnel. So if you look at some of these experts, we talk about the authority positioning platform, the portfolio, and the process. And these are 30 people that are industry experts. And depending on what industry you're in, you might recognize some of the names, like Bob Berg and Tom Hopkins. And it's just really amazing to see the quality of people that I was able to bring on. And these are 30-minute video interviews. It's not, and it's like, here's the link. Watch the interview. If this is something that would be helpful to you, I'm providing this to you as well. And you know how it is. You watch a movie for the third time and you pick up something like you didn't pick up before. So many of these people, it's like, oh, wow, I do follow them. But when I watched that interview, you guys came up with one nugget that I really pulled away. So always be learning constantly and never ending improvement. Like Tony Robbins teaches, constant and never ending improvement. And then we're done. Like I said, this is not like a pitch or whatever, but I just wanted to show you, here's free gift number 4, and here's how you get it. Email me. Here's my email address. But I want to show you what that COVID good news, I'm going to click on this and let's see if it opens up for us. See if our internet cooperates. But this is how it looks. So I've got it on my website. And if you notice here, the screenshot that I took, I think at look at
there's still, it's really interesting to see just how much good news has come, because I'm not even seeing like the good news that you screenshotted before.
I know it's like old news now, but it's been a second or two. But here is like this embed code. I literally just on this page, I just put this code on there and it automatically feeds. So here's the headline, the blurb, and then the link over here. And if we clicked on it, which we won't, but it's like, these are like, oh, that's from today, that's from yesterday. But it really is just a lot of great things. So if someone was like, you know what, I want to send this out to my client base and go, here's my web. My team has begun compiling positive and encouraging news stories. Let's enjoy. And so it's just scroll. And then now up underneath that was this other one. If you like this, like FAQs. So why worry about this? And here's, can coronavirus stick to clothes? And these are all like, this came from CNN. This came from CNN and, World Health, there's a lot from CNN, but New York Times. So this isn't just like conspiracy theory wackadoos that we see out there, because I could tell you that my wife and I have stopped following people even from our own church that are like, are you serious? You said that? That's just nuts. So these are news stories and frequently asked questions from reputable New York Times, World Health, John Hopkins. So these are just helpful things. If this would be something that would help and interest you, I'm happy to provide that, one of those codes. So just shoot me an email and go, hey, send me, like you might not care about the home study, but tell me what you want and I'll email you back. And then if there's anything that you want or don't want, just let me know. But that's what we wanted to do. And hopefully if you just think about what we covered here, A, there was no pitch for selling anything, but B, we talked about some good strategy that you can do right now that will help you look good even now. But as you come out of this, if you got a couple of those podcast interviews and you can use that in your business development moving forward and use it as a frequently asked question response or a website or social media, those are going to be the things that help you look like the expert that you are in front of your target audience.
Well, and I think too, just so everyone remembers too, everything you're starting now does not have to stop when we get out of this situation. This is just the catalyst to help propel you into your authority positioning strategy. And since we have the time now, it would be crazy not to just start something and get a little bit of forward movement, because your competition's probably not doing this.
Well, and right. This needs to be done anyway. I was on a podcast literally this morning where someone goes, okay, authority positioning, authority marketing, that's unbelievable. So all these other marketing things we do, what does that replace? Do we now don't need SEO? It goes alongside everything to make everything else work that much better. Because like I said earlier, if you had some of this kind of stuff done on your LinkedIn profile and you're reaching out to some people you'd love to connect with and you don't really know who they are, but you're doing a connection request with a nice little intro message, whatever you're advising, right? People are like, let me check it out. No, ignore. But what if they look at your profile and it's like, They look pretty legit. Yeah, I'll connect with you. Cool. All of this authority positioning helps whatever you're doing work that much better. Is it going to be 100% change? No, nothing is. But these are things you should be doing anyway. Anybody and their brother can do some of the simple things. But when you do these kind of authority marketing tactics and easy things, that does elevate you because, like you said, Nicole, your competition's not doing this and they're not doing it consistently. That's the
Mhm.
big thing.
Well, and I think too, it's one of those things where if the only thing you take away from this is that you need to start doing it, figure out what doing it means for you, because you can have some people may even say, oh, I'm going to go after these and it's like 50 podcasts or whatnot. But if that gives you anxiety, do what's going to be best for you, but just start doing it. But also be very mindful of what you're sharing and what you're getting yourself on, because you are always going to be your brand. So just always be mindful that you are your brand, and whatever you get on and whatever you show always has to be building that authority and not necessarily taking away from it, because there are some things that you probably don't want to be on or have people ask you or share. And just remember that you are that brand. Well, Mike, it was such a pleasure to have you on today and to be able to share all of these amazing tips. If anyone does want all of these things, again, we will put your information into the notes beneath this just so that people have it easily accessible and they can get it after watching this. But thank you so much. And I look
You're
forward to
welcome.
kind of talking with you after this is all over with to see what the new normal is for authority positioning too, because it's probably going to
Yes.
change a little bit.
It
All
was
right.
good chatting with you today.
It was good. For everyone watching, we will talk to you later, but remember to sell smarter and not harder. Bye.